What's up with that little signal radar? It just keeps on like spiraling all over the place. But I'm guessing because there might be some signal detection issues or something like that. Or maybe because they're trying to signify the forms of the UFOs themselves. Anyway, hey, what is up ladies and gentlemen? I'm Piglet here once again, and I'm back for some more yet again for the Maxi Toys videos. And ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to more Let's Play of Kirby's Epic Yarn for the Nintendo Wii / Kirby's Extra Epic Yarn for the Nintendo 3DS, for new Nintendo 3DS, and for the Nintendo Wii for the original game. So, yeah, last time we actually did done the first half of the forms of, in Spaceland. So we did manage to travel through Future City, Tube Town, Mysterious UFO, and Stellar Way. And now we're going to be continuing on and moving on to the forms of the main boss in Spaceland. So let's get to this. So yeah, if you remember from the past Kirby's adventures, at this point in time, we already know exactly how Meta Knight's boss fight works. Except the fact that this time around though, is that the main purpose of this boss fight as far as this is concerned is the fact that we need to get rid of one of his swords. Because even then, every time he decides to able to use one of them, he'll actually need to use that for to be more specifically trying to able to use the projectile and just trying to throw it back right at him. So even then though, once you deal with that, you stun him for about a few seconds notice, and then once you're able to actually temporarily stun with him, then not only does it gives you a lot of beads to able to collect, but also it gives you a chance to able to actually hopefully trying to able to get rid of one of his swords. So yeah, that's very promising altogether, but what makes this boss fight a lot more difficult than King Dedede was for some reason is the fact that, it's kind of like the same thing for how it does it in Kirby Mouse Attack of all things, is that you fight Meta Knight after King Dedede beyond that, and I feel like the Meta Knight's boss fight is a little bit more difficult than the likes of how it does it in King Dedede's boss fight. It's most likely because, first of all, he moves way too fast, and second of all, the actual sword attacks, especially noticeable with the forms of that specific projectile grinding and all that stuff, can be very unpredictable to dodge at times, mainly on the third section, because the third section is by far the hardest section in this entire fight, because even then, all it gets in here is just basically it just gives you an opportunity that you would easily gonna get yourself hit a lot, even by the forms of that specific sword attack, as you can see right there. But at the same time though, that he moves way too fast obviously, and if you do not pay attention to that whatsoever, even if you really want to get those beats so badly, like I was going to be going after not only the gold medal, and especially noticeable with the hidden patch, but also by the forms of a no damage run of any kind. But sometimes that Meta Knight always attempts to block me sometimes, because even then, I was trying to able to actually give myself my escape, but then next thing you notice is the fact that I can't escape during that time, because I always have to get so unpredictable with the forms of that specific attacks in mind. So that makes it a little bit trickier than the likes of how it does it in any other Kirby's boss fights. Well, to be more specifically from the previous games, as far as Meta Knight's boss fights will go. Even especially noticeable how the fact that it's almost nearly towards the end of the game, obviously. So expecting so, then yeah. And yeah, you can't really take your time when it comes to able to actually just let those star beads scattered all over the place, because if you let that happening, then next thing you know is that you will able to lose a whole bunch of beads so easily. And even then though, that it's not as easy as it sounds. But at least as far as I really personally don't mind the challenge after this boss fight, because this might actually be one of the more difficult boss fights in the entire game, which I appreciate it with this kind of stuff, but unlike in any other bosses in this game has to offer, is the fact that they always trying to able to put up with the most very easy, self-explanatory boss fights, but even then, that's just how I think it is. Thankfully though, the fourth and final phase is definitely the red sword that we need to deal with right there. And thankfully though, the red sword is the easiest of the bunch, because even then, it doesn't move as fast as far as I was hoping before. And as soon as you deal with all four of those swords, because yes, you have to deal with all four of those swords before you're able to actually just finish up with Meta Knight, because you can't really kill him, obviously, because we need him to survive for Dreamland, obviously. And there we go, that pretty much does it, but in forms of Meta Knight. And also, I believe this might actually be the final piece that we've got for the magic yarn. See, Veneno, that way it should able to restore everything in Patchland. So, yeah, that's how it goes though, hey? And we've got a satellite patch.
We did it! We got a piece of the magic yarn. The magic yarn shimmered and spiraled and swirled high into the sky. And Patchland was stitched back together, thanks to Kirby and Prince Fluff. Thanks, Kirby. I couldn't have done it without your help. Kirby and Prince Fluff jumped for joy, but their celebration was cut short when Meta Knight awoke. Kirby, forgive me. I blame the yarn. Meta Knight explained to Kirby that Yin Yarn was taking over Dreamland. This upset Kirby immensely. He had no idea how to get back to Dreamland. I've got it, Fluff declared. Prince Fluff pulled out a sock, just like the one Yin Yarn had stolen from Patch Castle. Socks always come in pairs, and now that Patchland was stitched back together, the other sock's magic had been restored. Be careful, Kirby. Yin Yarn is one mean piece of string. He'll be fine. After all, I'm going with him, Fluff said. And they all set out for Dreamland to button up Yin Yarn's story once and for all.
So, as soon as we're able to actually get into one of the spare magic socks, so that way we can able to actually go back home into the forms of Dreamland. And as you can tell, everything else is made out of yarn. So, what a mess. And there's no dialogue or anything like that, it's just a little cinematic. So, yeah, look at everything. Everything's all in yarn filtered, like even for Wispy Woods, and all kinds of landscapes, including the likes of Castle DDD from the skies, and especially noticeable with every single landscapes and stuff like that. So, but we need to able to fix everything though, to able to actually make Kirby proud. But we're probably not going to do that just yet though, because obviously we need to able to 100% through everything. See, Veneno, we need to head back to, you know, Spaceland to do some secret levels. So, thankfully though, as far as these secret levels, as far as this is concerned, with Spaceland in mind, these levels are a little bit shorter than the likes of how it does in the regular levels from Spaceland. So, expecting so that things can get a little bit more quicker than ever will be. So, yeah, that's how it goes though, hey? So let's unravel that, even though the satellite does that all by itself to unlock the moon base. So, today was actually forms of the 26th of September in 2018, so we've naturally almost, we've almost literally on our way to the forms of October, so we've only got ourselves 5 more days to go until the forms of October starts. So, yeah, that should be pretty sufficing for that department right there. And right from the get-go, everything else is all in gravity mode right from the start. And the main purpose of this level is the fact that we're actually going to be taking control of the actual tank. So, yeah, it's been a long time coming, hasn't it? From the forms of that specific tank transformation ever since during the likes of in the very first level in the actual game. So, yeah, it's been a long time coming, hasn't it? Because we always have several transformations that require certain, like, button controls, sometimes tilting controls, and especially noticeable with the forms of like pointing and drawing rail tracks type of transformation every once in a while. So from here we get ourselves the cosmic bin, so everything else will be able to be dealt for welcoming. So yeah, it's not much else I can really say, but in forms of, you know, today's piece of news and all our discussions to make through. Other than that, I've heard from several interviews out there, but in forms of, like, let's just say, you know, the person who is a huge fan of the sorry, I really can't speak today for this point, folks. that particular kid, he was a huge fan of the Super Smash Bros. Series, but in forms of, you know, every single games in the series, including the likes of the upcoming Super Smash Bros. Ultimate and all that stuff. And he was actually going, his name, by the way, though, the ones I'm going to talk about, is the forms of Chris Tyler. And he was actually really looking forward to able to actually just, you know, highly anticipated for Super Smash Bros. Ultimate during this year. And expecting so there might be, like, you know, 3 more months to go until that game's finally be released. So, expecting so, this might be very, very awesome, even to this day. However, though, things doesn't work out, and during the likes of him Friday, that he got himself his cancer. But, every once in a while, though, he did manage to able to actually get to, surprisingly enough, he actually got into the early access of the forms of, let's just say, the Best Buy demo of the forms of, like, Super Smash Bros. Ultimate or something like that. And, he did play for a bit, and he was actually really looking forward to it, along with his friends, of course. But sadly, though, until it gets to the point until, like, you know, Monday, the forms of, the 24th of September or something like that, that, basically what happens is the fact that the actual cancer results, so far anyway, has been failed, and as a result, he sadly passed away, which I will admit though right away, I am so sorry, because even then, I know for the fact that I really hate the feeling of the cancers and all that stuff, because it feels kind of like, it's almost like a luck-based factor of the forms of, like, the illness, survival. I think it's most likely what happens is the fact that, what happens is the fact that the only illness that he's got from the cancer, it might actually be something to do with his heart. So, yeah, I think that's the only saddest part about this this particular point of news and all that stuff, which is kind of a shame, because he was so looking forward until whenever he decided to able to finally make its made its playable debut of the forms of the Super Smash Bros. Ultimate and all that stuff with the actual game, that he was so looking forward to able to play in that title once that game's finally gonna come out. But unfortunately, luck expires due to the forms of the Battle of the Cancer, which, I felt sorry for this guy. Even then though, I always felt incredibly bad for him for able to not to play the actual final version of Super Smash Bros. Ultimate every once in a while, so even though I did cry, even then though, that's all I could really matters though. Don't worry, I'm not gonna cry or anything, it's just that it's so upsetting for this point today, or even for the most recent times these days. Alright, so now we're done with the forms of Moonbase, as far as you can clearly tell what's been going on. And now let's go ahead and move on to the final level in the forms of Spaceland after this little cinematic is done. Get out, you strange little alien. You failed your hula hoop session. And here we go, Outer Rings. Now, Outer Rings, as far as both of those levels in mind, well, they're still most likely focusing on transformation levels. However, though, with the forms of Outer Rings, this level is actually very interesting because of how the fact that you know the likes of the forms of the ending sequence in the Stellar Way level. Well, basically they have to do with the forms of like take control of like Kirby Rocket. Well, that's the whole entire focus of this level this time around though, because all it does is the fact that well, we get to keep on shooting multitude of asteroids, even meteor showers, and even especially enemies included. So even then though, that this is actually a very fun level, not to mention, because even then, it's actually pretty thrilling at the same time, once you're able to actually get used to with the forms of the actual, like, the shooting mechanics, and especially noticeable by the forms of, like, pretty much everything for the most part though. So yeah, I always do enjoy this level though. So even then, although there are still some little bit of some more trial and error moments like this still makes its debut again, like the forms of like those enemies who are able to actually just manage to become unpredictable even for projectiles you need to avoid. And oh yeah, we got a Saturn stand, and most of those treasures we need to able to defeat the certain amount of enemies before you're able to actually get yourself some treasures, just like the forms of how it does it in every single transformation level. So even then though, that makes it very obvious for this point at this point in time folks, but even then though, that's besides the point. So there's another thing I just want to talk about for this point, folks. I've recently managed to able to got myself my brand new iPhone with me for today. Now, I say brand new, in fact, I still have an old progression as far as that's been concerned. However, though, unlike any forms of how it does it back in 2017, what I've managed to able to actually completely wrap things up with the forms of like iPhone 5 and able to move on to iPhone 6s. Well, somehow in this year though, I actually decided to downgrade the forms of the actual generation of iPhones because, well, I decided able to actually just go through iPhone 6 just by itself, because even then, nothing terribly wrong with the forms of the S version. I think it still works even to this day. But one tiny little problem though is the fact that every time when I was trying to able to search for stuff, even especially noticeable when I was able to type something, or just in this case, playing games, for example, like Sonic the Hedgehog, Sonic the Hedgehog 2, Sonic the Hedgehog CD, and especially noticeable with Sonic the Hedgehog 4 Episode 1 and Episode 2, that I cannot for the life of me, my phone has actually got a nasty crack of the screen. I think I might as well able to blame Shadow for that, because even then though, that he accidentally dropped it like a darker, edgier hedgehog. But even then though, that thankfully though, I did test it out for myself, and it works surprisingly well this time, and thankfully there won't any bugs or issues from this point this time. So, anyways though, before we get into more anything about this, here we have the familiar face. We have ourselves Cracker right there, and basically we need to keep shooting at him as many times as you want, and then if you manage to able to actually hit him as many times as you want, then you would able to actually, I'm presuming you, not only to able to actually finish up the main level, but also it might actually give you an opportunity to able to actually give you the third and the final treasure in this particular level, in addition to the true final treasure by the forms of Spaceland in general. So yeah, it's very cool though, even then though, that's what I really doubted for saying for that, right? So even then, let's go ahead and finish him off completely, and oh, he's almost down. And come on, hopefully we should able to beat him down, and boom, he's down. So yeah, we've now got ourselves the third and final treasure, and everything else is all completely muted, just because we are finished up the main level. So yeah, top notch that is. And speaking of top notch, there we go. I've managed to get myself 500 more beats, so hopefully expecting so everything else will be flawless. Alright, so I think that's pretty much it by the forms of Spaceland. I first thought that it's going to be one of my least favorite worlds of the game, but it turns out I was totally wrong about that, because I have no issues there from that point, but it can be very tricky in some scenarios, most notably because there is too many bottomless pits everywhere, and several of the mistakes you might as well able to easily come across, so even then, that's what I could really think about. Alright, so since we've done with all that, even for Spaceland, so we've actually got ourselves the one last world to deal with, but before we do the final main world of the game, which is the forms of Dreamland, we might be able to actually decide to able to go through minigame challenges, but first of all, let's place this one last furniture onto that specific room on flat 302, and place the space monitor, and as soon as we're able to collect all of the furnitures, then we get ourselves the final friend. Well, and how is everything progressing here, Lord Kirby? Are you finished? Oh my, this is such a perfectly decorated room. My name is Maria, and I'll take it. So yes, we have ourselves the final, tendron right there, by the forms of, Maria, but, we'll explain more on her, so I'm also able to actually save more description of her when we actually get into the next episode, because even then, every single flat is being fully, completely done, but even then though, they're expecting so now we can able to do even more challenges as a result, and first of all, let's purchase ourselves the forms of the Mennonite doll, and that's pretty much it for now on though. And as for fabrics, we might as well able to purchase every single fabrics as we can go, because I don't think we actually got as many fabrics as far as the main playthrough of the game as far as that's been concerned so far. So anyways though, let's purchase these, and we're pretty much done for now, and let's just go ahead and keep on going back in here and buy one last fabric for now, and hopefully that'll pretty much does it from there. And by the way, you can now actually access to the forms of Dreamland from here and there as well, onto that little top of the cage from here. And one thing I forgot to show you guys is the fact that you can actually bounce onto those clouds. I think the reason why they did this is because you can actually get on top of the actual rooftop of the forms of the flats building. So yeah, that's very cool. Even then though, that it might actually not give you an option to able to add a the 4th floor right now, because that's the only minimum we've got. So before we end this off, however, though, let's see our progression is so far. So we've got 89% of cost, and 91% of stuff, and 65% for fabrics. Even then, yeah, we're getting really close towards the end of this game, folks. Even especially noticeable for the 100% completion of the game, unlike in forms of Cap King 74. That's all he does is he's most likely focusing on the main levels, and especially with the secret levels themselves, obviously. So anyways, though, we have 86% of the medals, 82% of those tunes, and finally 88% of these films slash flicks. So yeah, still the highest of the bunch. It was still stuff because of how the fact that I did manage to purchase every single furnitures in the forms of the furniture shop so far. So yeah, everything else has all come together for this point. So yeah, with that being said though, still this is kind of a short video, but until we get to the later videos throughout in the majority of this Let's Play, hopefully I should be able to actually upload something a little bit more longer than ever will be. So anyways, join me next time on Let's Play Kirby's Epic Yarn. Is the fact that we're going to be returning back into the forms of those minigame challenges and even do some more stuff here and there. So yeah, see you guys next time. Later, fellas.